Hello, and welcome to the channel. I am Miss Vanity Scarlet, America's favorite strong, independent, black, Catholic, white Christian woman who don't need no man. Praise Jesus, hallelujah, thank God. And I'm here to show you how I went from this to this. Alright, so first things first, I need to get all of this week-old stubble shadowness gone. So I need to shave all this stuff off. Okay, so I'm all freshly shaven now, all smooth. I hate it. I love myself for the beard, but we do what we gotta do for what we love. And I also changed into a tank top because I'm never really doing my makeup in whatever I'm gonna wear, so I find it easier to either do it in like a button-down shirt or a robe or a tank top, something that's loose and easy to take off so I don't smudge my makeup when I'm ready to get dressed. So I'm just gonna turn this backwards so that's not in the way. And then, so I always start off with some kind of primer, and 9 times out of 10, it'll always be my old faithful Milk of Magnesia. Now, some of y'all might be looking at me like I'm crazy, and some of y'all might, have seen this before, and I know I've seen a number of like makeup tutorials and whatnot using Milk of Magnesia. This was a tip that I picked up like 7, 8 years ago, I don't know. The first time I was doing La Cage aux Folles, I was playing one of the drag queens, and they brought in a local drag queen, Miss Monica Moore, to come in and show us how to do our makeup because we were actors, not drag queens, and we needed to be drag queens. And one thing that he mentioned that, some girls use is Milk of Magnesia as a primer, and ever since then, that is all that I have used. It's just, I don't know, I've gotten so accustomed to painting my face with the Milk of Magnesia primer that whenever I use something else, it just feels wrong. One thing I will say, if you're going to try and use the Milk of Magnesia as your primer, make sure you get plain Milk of Magnesia and not anything that's flavored. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know what they do differently or what they put in the flavor that makes it this way, but for some reason, the normal Milk of Magnesia, whether it's, thickened like it is right now or, liquid and you just put it on, it dries very white and powdery, where the flavored ones, they don't really dry. They just get sticky and gross, and it's like, I don't know what it is they do differently, but it's terribly unpleasant. So if you are going to go Milk of Magnesia primer route, just make sure that it is plain, unflavored, regular old-fashioned Milk of Magnesia. So I'll probably just let this dry for a few minutes and then I'll be back. Okie dokie, so when it's all dry, it looks dry. Well, obviously it looks dry. It looks crusty and calcified like that and all that jazz. So then what I usually use, I either use my hands or I use my big fluffy brush that I use to brush everything off. And I just kind of circularly dust/scrub off the excess, because all I really want is just that initial thin layer, and any excess is just gonna get in the way. Sometimes it'll cake up underneath my makeup or, get all crackly and peel and whatnot. So I just want this nice, thin, smooth layer. And another reason why I like using the Milk of Magnesia versus something else, especially down here on like my neck and my beard area, is when I go to color correct, which we'll do in a minute, because I feel like it helps give just like this extra layer of, almost like a primer when you're painting. It gives like this extra layer, well, that's what I'm using it as a primer, duh. But it gives kind of this little extra layer of opaqueness for my color correction that just helps to block out the dark shadows that you would get from like the beard area, that 5 o'clock shadow, especially along my neck, because I'm one of those people who can't shave with a razor too frequently or too closely, because I get very, very, very bad razor burn and very, very sensitive skin when it comes to my neck, and nobody likes seeing all that stuff happen. So that helps to combat me having to shave quite as closely. Alright, so once I've got all that dusted, then I go on to gluing down my eyebrows. Now, I usually do the good old-fashioned Elmer's glue stick, purple glue stick, just because that's what I'm used to doing. I've tried the spirit gum a couple times before, and I just never really got it to work or sit how I wanted. But whenever I'm doing like a show that I know is gonna require an abundance of choreography, or I'm going to be sweating a lot like I am for this look, because I don't think I announced it yet in this video, but this look is my Frankenfurter look that I'm using in Rocky Horror, because I'm currently in a production of Rocky Horror, and this is the makeup that I do for that production. Yeah, so that's what's happening. That's where this look's coming from. But whenever I'm doing a show like this, or like when I did Lacage, or a couple other shows where I'm gonna have like heavy choreography and a lot of dancing and whatnot, I use this Prozaid stuff, which I believe is like medical adhesive, but a lot of people use it in lieu of spirit gum for a lot of like prosthetic application and whatnot. I first heard about it when I was watching a makeup tutorial. I believe it was Cameron Michaels. She uses it because she got some thick boy eyebrows too, and it's just supposed to be more waterproof than the glue stick method. So all I did is I just used my fingers. You can apply it with whatever you want, but I just used my fingers to get it underneath and on top of the hairs, and then I'm using my trusty old eyebrow brush that's full of glue. That's all glue and makeup, and I'm using that to just press the hairs flat up and against the skin, because the flatter we can get it, the better. Alrighty, so now I got my eyebrows glued and slicked back and all that jazz. They look like a hot mess, but you know, most of drag looks like a hot mess until you get to the finished product. Like I said, I only use the Prozaid stuff. I only use that when I know that I'm gonna have like an abundance of like choreography, or I'm gonna be sweating, so like when I'm being Beyonce. But 95% of the time, if it's just like for me recording videos, or me doing a gig where I'm being Adele and I just stand there and sing, because I much prefer to just sing live, sing some sort of parody, be funny, whatnot, and stand there and look pretty, than have to run around and dance and, you know, be all that kind of stuff. So if I'm just being Adele, then I'll just use my good old-fashioned Elmer's glue stick, purple. But if I gotta be Beyonce, then I need a little bit more reinforcement. When it comes to my color correction, that's one thing where it all just depends on what I have. Sometimes I've got a tinted concealer, like I have here. Sometimes I don't, and I just use red face paint, or sometimes in the earlier days I'd use a pinkish or orangish kind of lipstick. Basically, I'm looking for something with like a red to orangish undertone to combat the blues that you would get in the skin as a result of the 5 o'clock shadow. So now this, okay, I think I have enough to get through this color correction. This tube's almost out. I tend to go pretty heavily on my color correction. Some queens don't, because they don't have a very heavy shadow to battle, and they've just got that nice natural woman thing going on, and you know, fine, be that way. But I got major heavy shadow because, like I said earlier, I can't shave super duper closely because I've got sensitive skin. So I go heavy on my color correction. And one thing I like about this sort of like tinted concealer is it is a concealer. It helps to conceal, but it also has that orangish color already built in to help neutralize like the blues. So I go around my mustache, my beard area, and I'll do a little bit under my eyes in case I have dark circles, because I don't sleep very often, because, you know, sleep is overrated and I work like 4,000 jobs. I don't have time for that all the time. All right. And then I go ahead and take my little blender sponge. I've got like 15 different blender sponges. This is my dedicated color correction blender sponge, and I just spread this out. Okay, and that is mostly blended in. Next, what I do is I'll take my purple glue stick, even though I didn't glue my eyebrows down with it. I'll go over what I did with the Prozaid with this, just to kind of help fill in any of the gaps, like in the texture from the eyebrow, and to just kind of give like one more layer of protection, because you can never glue your eyebrows down enough. I mean, let's be honest, especially not these bitches. All right. Then I just go ahead and I powder on my color correction. So again, the powder just depends on what I have on hand. Right now I've got this Ben Nye Chestnut translucent setting powder. I like using Ben Nye products. They tend to last me a while. Like I've had this particular one, God knows how many months, probably over a year at this point, honestly. And like they're just good quality products. Like when I don't have the time to wait for Amazon to send me my Ben Nye products and like I need stuff in a pinch, like yeah, I'll go to a beauty supply store and get whatever translucent powders and whatnot. But they tend to like, I go through them like water. Like they don't last me very long. I guess because I have to use more of it to accomplish the same task. So, you know, if you have the time and the money to invest in quality makeup products, then by all means I suggest it. But if you're balling on a budget, which you know 90% of the time I am, you know, stuff you find at a makeup supply store, beauty supply store, wig store, whatever it may be, will work just fine. Like I said, it may not last me nearly as long, but it'll work just fine. So I'm just powdering this color correction that I did so that when I put on my foundation, the red doesn't mix in with my foundation and doesn't turn like the lower half of my face this sort of pinkish color. Because that's one thing I ran into, and problem I ran into back when I was first doing this, when I was doing Macage. The bottom half of my face was turning pink because I just put lipstick or whatever it is there, and I put foundation on top of that, and then bam, I have a pink lower half of my face. But I saw a makeup tutorial where a queen put translucent powder on top of their color correction. I was like, you know what, that makes an abundance of sense, and I've done it ever since, and I haven't been pink yet. Alright, so those eyebrows are almost dry, and what I forgot to do is actually powder them down, so I'm going to put one more layer of glue on top of that. And then immediately go over it with probably the same, just chestnut powder, just to help that glue really set, and to also block out the color of my eyebrows. That's another reason I really like the Ben Nye products, because even though it's like a translucent powder, like, girl, look at that. You ain't got you're not seeing any kind of color from my eyebrows underneath that. I love it. All right, so it's been, I don't know, about like 5-10 minutes, I don't know time. So I'm just gonna dust off this excess powder, and then I'm gonna move on to my foundation. All right, so for me, I prefer using like stick foundations that I can just kind of paint on. Every once in a while, if I don't have this, I'll use the liquid and whatnot, but I prefer using just stick cream type makeup in general, especially if I'm using the glue stick for my eyebrows, just because I feel like the liquid might accidentally melt away the water soluble, or you know, the washable glue stick that I have in my eyebrows. My eyebrows are going to be a hot hooker mess, so it's just easier for me to paint over with everything, and plus it gives me a little bit better control when I can just color like a crayon. But you use whatever foundation is good for you. So I got that on, then I'm going to grab my blender sponge. No, that's not the right one. There it is. And then beat my face some more. So right now I'm just doing a base foundation all in one color. And then if I were rushing, I would just do all my highlights and contours in powder. But since I'm not rushing right now, we'll go through the full process, full fantasy. Alrighty, and that is my base layer of foundation all blended down. So then next I go in with whatever my highlight color is. And I stick kind of close to the rule where like your highlight should be 2 to 3 shades lighter than, and your contour should be 2 to 3 shades darker than whatever your normal foundation that you're using. So all I did is I took my highlight color and I just made like a little right triangle underneath my eyes. I did a little stripe up my forehead, above my lips, and on my chin. And then I'm going to take my highlighter sponge and blend. And when it comes to my contour, I used to just draw on the contour and blend it, but sometimes it gets a little bit messy. So what I like to do is I like to take kind of a flat, I don't really know if it's a foundation brush, it might be, I don't know. 9 times out of 10, I'm not using whatever brushes that I use probably for the intent that they were made for. I just use them because they're the size that I need at that particular point. So I take this, it might be a foundation brush, it might not be, but I take it, I just swipe on some of the contour color directly on there. And I'll cut it in like that. And then from that line, I'll just use the brush and I'll blend it upward. Yes. Then I'll do the same thing on the other side. And blend. Then I'll go across the chin area, because if you've got a nice square manly jaw, that is the enemy, because we're trying to be nice delicate women in here. So I just run that across the edge, and I'm just trying to make a nice straight line so I get more of a, I don't know, just less of an angle here, make it look a little bit more straight. And then when I go in with my powders, I'll emphasize that a little bit more. But the reason that I prefer to do both a cream and a powder contour versus just doing a powder, like if I'm gonna rush and I just ain't got the time to go through this whole process, I'll just slap on foundation and then highlight, contour, and powders. But if I have the time, I like to do both cream and powder, just because whenever I'm performing, especially if it's like somewhere that's got really, really bright lights, like most of the time when I'm in drag, I'm performing like as a part of like theater, I'm on stage, I'm under heavy stage lighting, and that stuff can wash you out really, really quickly. So I like having the cream highlight and contour underneath as kind of a second layer, so that underneath that lighting, even if it washes out like the powder foundation and contour that I have, I've still got this kind of like underneath as a base, where it's like, okay, that can kind of save my illusion a little bit underneath all them harsh lights, because you know, unfortunately everywhere doesn't have an Instagram filter on it, and I don't want to be looking too rough. All right, and then it's also important that I've learned to bring my contour color down to a V along my neck, just because it helps to mask my Adam's apple. If I create a little bit more shadow happening there, it just helps to hide it a little bit. And then I'm gonna go up along my forehead. For people who have a smaller head, so people not like me, you probably don't need to contour your forehead. Like one of my bestie, Miss Orgasmic, who's been on the channel a number of times, she got a small little pea head, and she don't need to contour her forehead, so she can just skip over the steps. So you be the judge of what your head shape is and how much you need to contour, because you know, some people already have, you know, that lovely feminine bone structure and they don't have to worry about all this. But me, I got a man face and I need to change that. All right, so once I've got all that in place, then I'm just gonna set it with some powder. So I like to set my highlights first. So I usually go with a banana powder, and you can get that, like I said, from any beauty supply store, makeup store, wig store, wherever you go. Or you can get it online or whatever makeup stores you go to. All right, then I like to use my same like chestnut color that I used for setting my color correction in my eyebrows, and I'll go over my contour areas with that. And then once I've got those two things set, I just go in with a neutral colored setting powder and I just set the rest of it. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. Now I'm just gonna dust off this excess powder and see what we are working with up under all of this. So now that I dusted all that off, I'm gonna put some more on. So I'm just gonna pat on some more of my banana powder, my highlight color. I'm gonna just lightly press it underneath my eyes before I do my eyes. This way, this will catch any kind of eyeshadow fallout that might happen. So now I'm gonna do my eyebrows. So my eyebrows end up a different way every single time. I've just stopped trying to plan what my eyebrows are gonna be at this point, and I just let them be. So once I do one, I try to match that one. But anytime I go in with like a definite plan, like, okay, I'm gonna have this shape, I'm gonna have that shape, it never ends up being that way, and I stress myself out. So I just take my pencil and I just make it do whatever it does. So sometimes I'll start with a pencil, sometimes I'll start with a cream, sometimes I'll start with a shadow. It varies from time to time. But whatever I do start with, I try to start off with a lighter color. So right now I've got this sort of, I don't know if you can see that, this sort of light brownish colored eye, lip, auto pencil, whatever. So I'm just gonna use this to sketch out my brow. So what I do is I like to start from where my natural brow ends underneath the glue. So where that natural is, so that's where I'm going to start, right on top of that. And right now, I'm just going to sketch upward. Let's see where that goes. We'll make it curve a little bit. And I'll take it straight out. Okay. I'm fine with that for this particular look, because honestly, I'm not going for a natural woman look. And then I'm gonna start just a little bit under where that initial line started, and I'm gonna trace underneath. And then I'm not gonna follow the curve completely. I'm going to just keep this line going kind of straight, and it's going to just dead end into the other line, so that I end up with two lines here and they kind of meet to make one line here. And then this will be the place I fill, and then they'll get nice and skinny there towards the end. So I'll just fill this in with this brownish color. Okay, and that's the base for one eyebrow. Now we're gonna see if we can get the other eyebrow to semi sort of quasi match, because one slogan I have gone by for years now at this point is that my eyebrows are not going to be twins. Most of the time, they're not even going to be sisters. I like to say they're not twins, they're sisters, but 90% of the time they're not even sisters. Sometimes they're distant cousins, but you know, they're always in the same family. So those are sisters-ish, quasi, sort of, whatever. It's fine, everything's fine. So then lately I've been really into doing like an ombre graphic sort of brow, which is why I start sketching this in a lighter brown color so that I can do detailing in darker colors. All right, so I've just got my little pot here with this sort of black gel-ish cream sort of liner and whatnot. I'm just taking them really flat. I think this is like concealer brush. And all I'm gonna do is just get a little bit of that on it. And I'm gonna go here towards the corner, and I'm just gonna trace out from about midway to the end. All right, so then I'll make sure that that tail is filled in very, very nicely with the black, completely filled. And then I'll sort of extend this a little bit past the halfway point, but I won't fill it, because next I'm gonna go over that section with a different color like eyeshadow to help just kind of, I go in like 3-layer increments. So I'll go with a really, really dark black, then like a dark brownish, and then a light brownish to just help solidify that sort of ombre effect. Okay, so I've got both eyebrows on. They are relatively similar-ish in size and shape. So then if for whatever reason you made a mistake and you drew something too low, things weren't quite even, you can always go and correct it with some either concealer, or I like to use my eyeshadow primer base, the little cream pot that I have here. I've gotten white. Sometimes I'll use concealer, sometimes I'll use the base, it all depends. But either way, like I said, I prefer to use a cream to a liquid, just because for the times I am using the Elmer's glue stick, I prefer not to add any extra moisture out of fear of dissolving the glue and having my eyebrows look like a hot mess. So whatever I choose to do, or whatever I choose to use, I'll just take this little brush and I just kind of clean up that line underneath my brow. So then once I've got that under there, I just kind of pile this on. It's probably not the most efficient or the most intelligent way to do this, but this is just how I do it. It's what works for me, and that's what you guys are here watching. You're watching me. Everybody's got their own secret method. All right, once I've got those eyebrows all cleaned up underneath and I've got my eyeshadow base all set, then I'm going to start to cut my crease. And this is something that changes. My eye shape changes from day to day. The colors I use change from day to day. So in my eyeshadow palette, I'm going with this sort of, kind of, like I said, peacock-y sort of green. And I'm gonna use that as the base of my cut crease. And the shape that I've liked the last, I don't know, couple months that I've been doing this, I've been doing more of a kind of cotangent, tangent type curve where it's straight and then kind of slopes in straight across and then comes back up. My math nerds will know what the hell I'm talking about, but for the rest of us, we are just going to dab it on. And I like to just dab it on versus swiping it. I feel like if I dab it, the color's a little bit more potent. The reason that I actually decided to make this video, because I've had a number of people in the comment section ever since I started doing my reactions in drag, ask me to, hey, how did you do this makeup? How did you, contour your boobies? How did you do this? How did you do that? You should make a, makeup tutorial. And I kind of just, opted not to because there's like 700 million different drag queens out there who all have makeup tutorials on YouTube, on the interwebs, and their makeup tutorials are probably infinitely better than anything I could put together. But one of my theater friends, Miss Jessica, reached out to me about a week and a half ago and she said, hey, I have this student in one of my theater classes and she does this amazing makeup and she's learning all about different kinds of makeup, and I was wondering if maybe you could make like a makeup tutorial so that she could learn how to do drag makeup, because she's learning all kinds of makeup and she's really, really good. And I can pay you, or whatever I can say. And I was like, you ain't gotta pay me nothing. I am more than happy to. I don't know how informative or how amazing my video will be, but I will be more than happy to help however I can. So that is where this makeup tutorial is going. I've done, makeup transformations in the past where I just kind of time-lapse myself doing my own makeup, but I've never actually done a full-on tutorial. So shout out to Faith, as a student. I'm glad that you are taking an interest in artistic stuff, taking an interest in theater, taking an interest in makeup. Jessica tells me that you are amazing, so I hope that I'm able to pass on something to you. And yeah, so that's where all this is going. So now, I've got that eye shape more or less done. They're more or less similar-ish. Again, like with my eyebrows, my actual creases are not going to be twins. They'll be sisters, sometimes cousins, but they'll be in the same family. So now that I've got this green laid down, right above the green is this nice sort of like denim-ish blue thing happening there. So I'm gonna go with that, and I'm gonna go underneath just to help kind of define that crease a little bit more, just along the edge, bottom edge of where I laid the green. And again, this is just to kind of help further define that crease. And it's okay if you make it messy or if things get a little, low and whatnot, because I'm gonna go in with my eyeshadow primer or concealer, whatever you used before, and clean up this line anyway. Cool. And then once that shape is pretty much there, I'm gonna go in with, I don't know what color. Maybe a nice, well, I guess I'm a fan of this sort of peachy-ish, well, all these peachy-ish colors. I've been a fan of them for a while because they're almost gone. So I'm gonna go in with one of those and just kind of highlight my brow bone. So then I'm gonna go in with my eyeshadow base again and my little brush. And I'm gonna clean up that line that I just got all sloppy with my blue. I'll go in here. Alright, and I'm more or less happy with that shape. Like I said, I just went in and I just cleaned up that line, and you can clean it up as much or as little as you want until you get whatever shape you want there. Like I said, I'm pretty much happy with that curve, so then I'll do the same thing on the other side. Alrighty, once I'm done cleaning all those lines up, I'm just gonna go in with whatever color I went for my brow bone, and I'm just going to pat that in on the rest of the lid, just to A, give myself a little color there, and B, to just help set that primer a little bit better so it's not all wet. Alright, once I've got that all set, then it's time for my eyeliner, which is always a fun experiment because, like everything else I do, it's never the same. It's never the same. It's like I keep saying, my wings are gonna be sisters, not twins. The way I shape my eyeliner is always different, but the way I've been doing it for this particular look is I've just been following the same curve that I've been creating here with my eye shape. So my liner is gonna do kind of a dip there, fall around that curve, and then come upward. So I like to do that outward edge first. Try and trace that inside edge and how that's going to look. Then I'll fill it in and refine those edges. Okay. I don't hate it. Probably the more I look at it, the more I'll hate it some more, but for right now, I don't hate it. So before I hate it some more, I'm just gonna take some black eyeshadow, pat it on there to help set it, since it is a gel liner. Don't need it smearing on me. Okay, I just gotta try and repeat the same thing on the other eye, which again is always the fun part. Okay, so now they're semi-quasi sort of ish in the same realm of existence. They kind of look like they might be related to one another. It took me some time, that's why I did it off camera, but they're semi-equal. So now, sometimes I'll use a shadow, sometimes I'll use glitter, sometimes I'll use a jewel, it all depends. But for this show, I've been using this liquid eyeshadow stuff that I got, again, cheap from a beauty supply store when I was looking for some, I think I was looking for a wig or something one day. But I just paint this little inside corner here with this, just to kind of brighten it up, make the eyes seem a little bit wider, a little bit bigger. Okay. I'll take my little eyeshadow brush that I was using to pat black shadow on top of my liner, and I'll just go underneath my, I think that was you, yeah. I'll just go underneath that just to kind of bring it all together. Beautiful. All right, last step for the eyes is I need my lashes. So So these I've got are actually some, I don't remember the exact brand, I can look them up, but it was a set of like 4 or 5, 1, 2, 3, a set of 4 lashes that I got off of Amazon, and they're just very, very long, but they are also kind of fluffy and spread apart so that it doesn't hide all the work that I did. So I just took 2 pairs of them and glued them together to make it a little bit thicker. And those are my lashes. And lashes are the vein of my existence because I have large man fingers, and trying to get them into this little tiny eye space isn't always fun. And I hate trying to ruin my makeup and all that stuff. So that's why I usually do like a big wing, because sometimes I'll use black lash glue, sometimes I'll use clear lash glue, but if it's black, that way if I mess up or whatever, you can't see because I got all this black here. And if it's clear, well, it doesn't really matter. So once those are on, my eyes are all done. So now I just gotta finish my contour, throw on some lips, and then I will be all good to go. Now I just need to contour, which is going to be interesting since, like I said earlier when I was doing my eyebrows, I must have left my actual brown, dark brown contour powder that I use at the theater or at my friend's house yesterday, Miss Aura Gatsby, when we were doing makeup. I'm not quite sure. I left it somewhere because I can't find it here. So I'm going to go into one of my eyeshadow palettes and see if I can find a comparable brown-ish color. I don't have one that's nice and rich like what I normally use, but I'm gonna go for the darkest brown, the darkest matte brown that I have in my eyeshadow palette, because I don't want any kind of shininess. So then what I do is, any kind of straight edge will work. I have this dual-sided that I just cut out of like cardboard paper. One where I cut out the shape of an actual cheek, because sometimes I like a nice rounded cheek, and then one that's just a flat edge work, because sometimes I just like the straight edge. For this, I've just been using the straight edge, and I just line it up. And normally, to try and find a way to keep it even, I'll go from like the little, I don't know what that is called, the little knob on my ear there, and I'll connect the piece of paper to the corner of my mouth. And I'll take my brown and I'll start towards my ear, because that's where most of the darkest parts go. And I'll just brush up. Okay. I'm gonna take that same brownish color and I'll go along my jawline. Just kind of cut off that corner a little bit more, really carve out, give me a nice kind of jaw. Hit the temple. Okay, and then I'll take that same little kabuki brush that's got that brownish color, and then I'll go in, and I'll usually use either like a hot pink, or lately I've been using like this sort of orangish color. You might be able to see, yeah. And I'll use that as my blush. I don't know why, I just like I feel like it gives me just enough color without being obnoxious. I just kind of dab that in there. Forehead, where that contour meets my highlight. And I gotta contour down this nose just a little bit. I haven't been doing a super drastic contour with this. I've really just been doing kind of just straight lines down. Slight little V, but nothing terribly drastic. Haven't been like doing the normal exclamation point, just because, well, we're wearing masks for this show, so the mask comes up here so you can barely see those contour anyway. Everything from here down, like, I don't have to do. I could just do all this and be done because I got the masks that I'm wearing for the show. And like, I've even had castmates ask me like, why do you go like, do you like your full face? Why do you even bother? And it's like, you know, it's for me. I like knowing that my face is completely beat. It just helps me solidify my character. It helps me get into that character. Plus, if for whatever reason my mask falls off, like I remember opening night, my mask was having trouble staying on, so then ever since then I've just been not safety pinning, bobby pinning my mask to my wig. But opening night, my mask was having trouble staying on. It fell off a couple times, but when it fell off, the rest of my face was beat. So y'all got the full fantasy. I'm just gonna take a little dab of concealer. Boop. Boop. Okay, so then now I'm just gonna take my little lip pencil and this sort of like dark burgundy color, and I'm gonna carve out my lips. I like a very sharp Cupid's bow, so that's one thing that I really emphasize. Switch it up to an old school pencil. Another liquid lipstick. And paint it on. And I'll just take a little bit of that eyeshadow primer that I had. A little bit on my thumb, or my pinky. Just to get this sort of ombre effect. And then lastly, I'll take either my liquid or my gel liner because it just depends on what I have. And I need my two beauty marks. Those are my signature, one above the lip. And one right above the cheek on the opposite side. And she is painted. The last thing I will do is I will go in with a little bit more of my banana powder and just clean up this contour line just a little bit. And I'm gonna get dressed, dust this off, and then she'll be good to go. All right, so I got on my wig, and this is part of my finale costume. You obviously can't see the bottom. I'm not wearing pants anyway, so it's fine. But here's a picture of the full fantasy. But yes, this is my finale, part of my finale look for Rocky Horror Picture Show as Frankenfurter. I decided when it came time for costuming and makeup and all that, that I wanted my Frankenfurter to be more authentic to me. So I could have very easily gone and gotten, like, you know, the stereotypical curly black wig and all that kind of stuff and done that kind of makeup. But I was a lot more inspired by Laverne Cox's version and how her version was a lot more just a feminine take on Frankenfurter. So I went as feminine as I could, and I felt like my Frank needed some texture. So that's why we got this wig that y'all have seen 700,000 times, but I just love it. So yes, this is the full fantasy. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. Shout out again to Faith. Thanks, Jessica, again for the suggestion. And if you guys want more makeup transformations and those kind of videos, check out my Topher's Transformations playlist here on my channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you. Mwah. To my amazing patrons, I can't begin to express how thankful I am for your support. And if you guys would like to join us over on Patreon, the link is down in the description. I love you guys. Hey guys, don't forget to check out the playlist on my channel for all of your favorite reaction videos. We've got playlists for Morissette Amon, Kelly Clarkson, Katrina Velarde, Tori Kelly, and more, so be sure to check them out.